Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for hopping on this recorded session of the University of Northern Iowa's Center for Business Growth and Innovations Coping with COVID, Creative Solutions for Your Business webinar series. We are hosting these live or recorded every day at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. This is our 2 p.m. session on Wednesday, March 25th. We've got a couple awesome guests with us here today. Throughout the course of this emergency, as businesses are continuing to get new information and trying to adapt and overcome, please don't hesitate to reach out to our staff at the Center for Business Growth and Innovation or Advance Iowa with any questions or concerns that you have around how you're going to work through this with your business. You can find all of our information on advanceiowa.com. We've got a header right there for COVID-19 that's going to take you to a list of a bunch of resources and where you can find these webinars. Lots of people are putting out content all over the place, and we're one of them. And so we want to be there to continue to support and help as we kind of go through this uncharted territory. So in this session today, we're going to be talking with Phil Jones from Rada Manufacturing and Dan Beenken, who is the director of our Advanced Iowa program. So I will turn it over to Dan to kind of introduce the topic and our speakers.
Great, thanks, Patrick. Hey, this is Dan Beenken with the Advanced Iowa program at the University of Northern Iowa. Great to have you guys watching. If you do have questions or want to reach out afterwards, since we know this is a recorded session, and we'll explain a little more on why that is later. I think it's kind of COVID related that we're doing it now at 11:30. But you can call us anytime at 319-273-IOWA, IOWA. Anytime, and we'll take your call and try to help you out. So with that said, I got the pleasure here to be with Phil Jones today, who's the CEO of Rada Manufacturing in Waverly, Iowa. If you don't know exactly the Rada name, you probably know their knives, and you probably have their knives in your kitchen drawer at home. They're the iconic, I would call it the aluminum shiny type looking knives that you've got. I know we have several in our kitchen, and just a really great story of a great entrepreneurial business located in Waverly, still locally family owned. And Phil has been gracious to give us a little bit of his time. He comes from a background of city management, but has now been managing the Rada plant and facilities for probably longer than I think, maybe 3, 4, 5 years by now, maybe longer actually. And Phil, we were going to have this at 2, and we normally do, and I think probably part of the reason for that is you guys are having an all-staff meeting of some type, and is that in any way, shape, or form related to COVID?
Yeah, thanks, Dan, first for the opportunity to be here. Yeah, it's almost been 5 years already, so time flies, and thankfully, especially during this time, I'm just the general manager, so I don't have to wear the CEO hat yet. But yeah, today we do our 2:10 talks is what we're calling them. And so we're having departmental meetings very regularly at 2:10 in the afternoons, just to share what's going on around COVID, what's happening in the world, any legislative updates, any policy updates, and then a little bit of fact checking for folks too.
Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate you being able to do this early so you can do that later. You know, one of the things that first brought to my attention why it would be great to have you on was how you were being flexible in regards to a workforce that now has a lot more demands on it. In regards to, we've got school closings and other employer closings. How are you, kind of trying to work through that? I know a lot of your employees have kids or grandkids, and how are you working through that?
Yeah, that's probably the chief thing we're looking at right now is managing our employees' needs outside of work, and then the business needs to keep things rolling. So what we're trying to do is we're looking at our policies around bonuses, attendance, things like that, and where we can relax those so that people aren't making a choice totally based on their paycheck if they need to do something for their family. So if they need to take time off, not requiring necessarily the advance notice we used to, being more flexible with how they're using their paid leave or their unpaid leave, and offering things like going to different shifts, moving from first shift to second shift or vice versa. And again, flexible use around, hey, maybe I'm a split household and I have my daughter this week, but not next week. Is it okay if I just alternate weeks of work? You bet. We're going to work with you so that you can take care of yourself and your family and stay well, and that we can be a responsible employer that way.
Great. So, you got people now that are maybe working first shift so they can watch their kids during second shift while a spouse goes to work, or grandparents are able to watch kids during the day and work at night, or those types of things are happening there then, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we're primarily first shift for as far as percentage, but we have had an employee switch to second shift so that he can watch his kids during the day while his spouse works, and then that way he can come to work in the evening when his spouse is home. And that's exactly what we're going for.
Cool. I love it. That's great. Can you talk a little bit maybe about these 210 meetings, and is that kind of the which part of the staff is involved with those, or how do you feel everyone involved with that?
Yeah, so that's something that we just decided last week to start. And we took our core leadership team, which is kind of our department heads, and we said, okay, let's divide up the whole place, about 100 people, into groups of 10, roughly. And it's a little bit less than that because of second shift, and just go out there all at the same time right after break and just have 4 or 5 talking points that we also have on a half sheet of paper that we can give them, so that they're hearing directly from us right away. We just, even if it's bad news, we don't want them to hear it from somebody else and then fill in the gaps. And we're also, our kind of theme is, if we feel like we're over communicating, we're probably doing it about right based on people's just concerns and uncertainty and fear right now. And so it doesn't even have to be all business. Some of it is truly fact checking that, my sister-in-law put this on Facebook. What do you think? Well, I have not heard that the National Guard is coming, but I can't answer that. I'm not the governor.
Sure. Yeah, no, actually, absolutely. I mean, these are the things on everyone's mind as they're trying to do their work every day. It's nice to take a little time to get everyone on the same page, I'm guessing.
Exactly.
And even though, they might not see the numbers, so to speak, they can sense production shifts of higher and lower volumes. And
Right.
without having to get into that too much, are you sharing kind of a little bit? Are you trying to be proactive with, hey, we're seeing a little bump increase or decrease because of COVID. We don't want anyone to worry. We're not worried. How are you addressing that kind of thing?
Yeah. First off, we're meeting almost daily as that leadership team, those department heads, for probably 90 minutes. Traditionally, we only meet once a week, but now we're meeting daily to talk through where are sales and where's production and who's out today and who might be out tomorrow. Then we're also saying, how do we plan for what we're calling mile markers or tripwires? When does revenue hit a certain point? When do weekly sales hit a certain decline that we escalate to the next level of action?
Okay.
So in light of that, what we're working on right now is a year-over-year trend graph to show our employees what revenues are doing so they can see visually how things are either trailing off or stabilizing. And that makes the conversation a lot easier.
Okay. So rather than trying to hide that, you're going right out there with it, talking about it, letting them know,
Yeah.
and everybody can hopefully keep their anxiety in check that way, I suppose.
That's the idea. Will it work how we want it to? Probably not, but it's better, we think, than them making it up.
Sure.
Because there will be a story out there. I guess I'd rather help craft that narrative rather than having to react to it later.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we're not sharing everything we talk about or everything we think of because that's not healthy, but we are trying to be just as open and transparent as we can, because we think it might actually help calm some things down rather than add more anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. How about, can you talk, Phil, about where where you're getting your information as a company leader to kind of, I know that they've relaxed a lot of unemployment law right now. They
Yeah.
are adjusting other things related to employment and not just employment, but probably a lot of different things. Where you kind of getting some of your good information that you would say is what you're using to base decisions on?
Yeah, we try to go to just a few reliable sources. So we use Iowa Workforce Development quite a bit. We're trying to tune into most of the daily governor briefings and using Iowa Department of Public Health and the CDC, because for us, one of the big unknowns is there's one thing planning for an economic slowdown. It's another thing planning for a mandated shutdown. And so until we're clear on that, we're spending a lot of energy planning for both eventualities. And that's very stressful. So again, we're trying to follow the state and federal guidance the best we can. We've been following OSHA and CIRUS for manufacturers.
Sure.
And then we have a handout that one of the big four consulting groups put together in March that we're using to kind of look at employees, financials, production, and marketing, so
Okay.
that we can have a little more manageable bite-sized pieces around our planning.
Yep. Kind of some profitability guidelines and things like that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yep. Are you
So
doing any? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just say, so we're trying to keep it pretty basic and pretty focused so that we can all go back to the same source and kind of ground truth it.
Okay, perfect. One thing I know that you handle as kind of a general manager there would probably be a lot of the HR related issues, so to speak.
Yeah.
And those are flying to the surface in a time like this. How do you kind of control the communication, the anxiety of employees who know so and so went to Chicago for the weekend and now is back at work, or went on a spring break trip to Mexico and they're here now, or they're caring for a elderly person? How do you deal with what is probably a lot of Sally is doing this, Phil, I don't like it, I'm not comfortable with it types of things?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm fortunate to have um, just an awesome HR manager here, Sean, who's been with the company for 30 years and been in the trenches and worked her way up the ladder. And so she's really good about speaking the language and understanding who the players are. But I'll
Okay.
say it is one of the hardest things ever to try to manage that and police it and be consistent, right? Because everybody has different recommendations. And then, well, if so and so's spouse traveled to see their parents in rural Minnesota this weekend, does so and so, who's the employee who didn't travel, did they stay home for 2 weeks? Or is it only the person whose kid is moving home from college out of state? You know what? It is so hard. We just try to do our best and we'll get it wrong. That's the only guarantee, is we'll get it wrong. But we're just trying to be as consistent as we can be
Okay.
around that and kind of give people as much grace and space as possible right now. Trying to understand that they're worried about themselves, their loved ones, their jobs, and their economic future.
Yeah, are they coming to you beforehand of travel or of going this place or that place, or do you want them to, or do
Yeah,
a lot of policing maybe? I don't know.
what we've tried to do is on those 210 talks and those handouts, we've tried to be clear about if you go out of state, it's now recommended you stay home for 2 weeks. If you have somebody in your home who's ill, we want you to stay home. If you're ill, stay home until a few days after you're better. Um, Sometimes the people that come to us ahead of time are the ones who are kind of looking at you like maybe your kid and saying, well, I'm going to go to Cabela's this weekend. What are you going to do about it? Well, gee, I don't think that's a good choice,
Sure.
but you're an adult. So
We just did a webinar earlier today on the unemployment changes.
yeah,
How they're laxing some things for taking claims. They're also incredibly busy at IWD, obviously dealing with all these claims. Uh, what, from your standpoint as an employer, are a couple of things that you would tell other employers to know or have in their back pocket when it comes to flexibility with, employees who want to do things and then not putting, maybe because you are experiencing a little dip in production, you can afford to let Sally be homesick for a couple weeks? Are there things that
Yeah.
you're doing?
What we're kind of doing as far as we're able to, and that's probably the caveat for everybody, is what are you able to do based on your balance sheet and your reserves and your lines of credit. But we're encouraging people to first use um, any of the new government sick leave that we track, and then we'll report that as part of our quarterly payroll tax uploads, or
Yep.
any of their paid time off that they have banked, or the new emergency FMLA leave for caring for your kids if they don't have school. Use these programs in place before you use unemployment.
Okay.
We're not saying that we don't want you to, but we also want to make sure that we have the programs we can use while you're employed here. And then if you need unemployment, that's fine, but not everybody has the 7 to 14 days to wait for that check to come either. We're a traditional pay you every Friday type of company, and not all of our employees can wait a Friday or two. So we're encouraging them to use the other programs in place and leave that unemployment as kind of last resort.
And then that keeps them as employees, that keeps their benefits in good
Exactly.
standing, and that also
Exactly.
keeps them somewhat tethered to you as an employer, as far as just 2 or 3 weeks ago, everybody was shouting about how low unemployment is, right? And how crazy, uh, terrible of a problem that is to find employees. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
How
And
about,
I know not everyone can do that, and I understand that. And we're also living in this tension of trying to live to our values of being a 72-year-old company that's never had a layoff ever. And now being in a whole new world where we have to manage for our employees and our customers, but also the future of the company when we come out of this.
perfect. Okay. And I know that you got meetings that you got to get to today. But maybe as far as one, words of wisdom or things that you're trying that, you might, you just want to pass along, maybe this might be a good time to mention those, Phil.
Sure. Um, yeah, I'm not sure how much wisdom I really have, but one of the things that we're really trying to do is make sure we're thinking about other people first. And right now, everybody talks about the customer, and that's great, that's true, but we're also thinking about our employees. And
Mm.
that can be really hard to do when we're faced with extreme decisions about how to keep the company alive and manage the limited resources, because money's still going out the door, it's just not coming in as fast. Um, and so we're trying to look at how do we get through this week and next week and the week after. How do we get ready for 6 months from now? And what does it look like 18 months from now? Because if things come out of this, I still have to have product on the shelf to fulfill orders to be a healthy company this winter, next summer. And so it really is trying to live in that tension, which means being surrounded by a great leadership team or people on the outside that we can trust and have deep conversations with. Because I think in the era of social distancing, I'm needing more connection than I needed before to deal with issues that we never thought we'd see as a company.
Sure.
So I think
Absolutely.
things like this and trusted advisors, and then also taking care of yourself as far as a leader with sleep and exercise, and maybe a little less eating out now than before, but keep supporting local businesses.
Right.
um,
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing, is we can't lose sight of um, having enough gas in the tank to lead through these situations.
Okay. All right, great. Well, I think we can wrap up there. Phil, I just want to say thank you so much. I know your time is precious right now, as you every day is so different than the last, and things
Right.
just changing literally probably by the hour. Is still at sometimes. Thank you for your words of wisdom here. I appreciate that. And tomorrow, I want to give just a quick heads up, our two webinars tomorrow will be focused more on cash flow, which I know is a big thing for everybody, maybe the biggest thing for a lot of folks. We're first going to talk with a representative with the Small Business Administration with the SBA. Dave Lintel is going to speak a little bit about some of the programming that's being offered right now through the SBA on the lending side. And then later in the afternoon, we're going to be talking with the banker, Steve Lindeman with Veridian Credit Union, who's going to be talking a little bit about the onslaught of phone calls he's getting from his clients about, I'm not going to be able to make my payment, or it's not going to be what you were hoping it was going to be. And how do we work with our banker or financial institution to kind of let them know what's going on with our business, and also, make sure that they aren't cutting us the legs out from underneath us, so to speak. So he's going to be talking about the challenges there. So thanks, Phil. I appreciate it. We appreciate it greatly. Again, if you want to reach out to us at UNI, you can catch us at advanceiowa.com. You can also call us at 319-273-4322 or 319-273-IOWA. And we'll be able to hopefully help you out, put you in the right direction for resources. Bill, thanks again for your time. Really respect that. And good luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.